Welcome to Interesting Enough. He is Trey. I am Nolan. Thank you guys so much for joining us once again. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, thank you. And thank you for joining us to our special edition of Hooper's Lounge. It's been a while since we've done this, so we're going to be chopping up with a lot of things basketball at the All-Star break. Trey, man, what's going on? How you feeling?
Man, I'm feeling good, man. I was feeling really, really good until I watched that All-Star game on Sunday, but still feeling good, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we a couple days removed from it, so we kind of over it, but we definitely have to do a podcast for you guys anyway. So again, thank you guys for always tuning in. Again, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. But we're gonna talk about the second half of the year and some stuff that we're looking forward to in the NBA season. And honestly, that was originally what we wanted to do on this podcast, but we can't even get on this without talking about the All-Star game and how bad it was. And like, listen, I think we might have talked about this last year, Trey. Like, we kind of complained about the Utah one, mostly because of the location, but also the game wasn't very good. I didn't know. I didn't think it could actually get worse than Utah last year. I'm gonna be real with you. I didn't think it could get worse, but my goodness, it got worse.
A lot
Uh,
worse.
Now everybody saw the game, and we're gonna go through the entire weekend and stuff. But I kind of wanted to throw it a little bit different instead of just asking you like different questions about it. There's been a lot of things that's been thrown around in terms of what can fix the All Star game, Trey. So I'm gonna kick out, like, we'll bounce an idea or two off, and then you just kind of tell me how you feel about it, and we'll go from there. So just things I've jotted down. So everybody's question is like, what can we do to fix the All Star game? What do you think about? And then of course, Trey, if you have a general one, you could always pick that one. But what do you think about the idea of, to make it more competitive, home court advantage in the finals? Because I've heard that baseball does do that for people that are listening, by the way. And the baseball All Star game is traditionally very, very good. To be fair, baseball is really not a sport that you can, for lack of a better term, half-ass, because you can't really like not throw the ball as hard as you can or go hit it. Like, if for somebody that hasn't played baseball, it's not one of those sports that you can do that.
And I
And
even think baseball might have stopped doing that.
doing what?
Having a home field advantage in the World Series.
Did they stop doing it?
Yeah, I believe they did.
Okay, so
I might
okay,
be wrong, but I believe they did.
I don't know if they did. I'll look that up while you're going, but if for anyway, they had been doing it for as long as I can remember. If they stopped it, it had to be very recently. But I just watched the All Star game this past year, because one of the Marlins players was in it. But I don't know. Um, that's actually interesting. I don't know. I'll have to look it up. But yeah. So what do you
Yeah,
think in
you look it
general
up.
about the
Yeah.
home? Yeah. What do you think in general about doing a home court advantage type of situation for the finals? For the winner of the East and West.
My thing is, the reason I just can't really disagree with it because let's just take the Miami Heat for example. Last year, let's just say that this team this year makes it because last year nobody really pegged the Miami Heat to make the NBA Finals. Let's be honest about it.
Yep.
Let's say they were able to repeat this year. Nobody for the Miami Heat would have been representing them in the All Star game. Yet their determination of home court advantage is determined by a game that they weren't even participating in, or they didn't have any participants with the organization. And I just don't think that's fair. I think that's
Well,
kind of
the Heat
ludicrous
the
to
Heat
me.
the Heat had Bam last year. They did.
No, no, no. I understand it, but I'm just saying they came out of nowhere last year. So let's say they did it again this year, came out of nowhere. This
Mhm.
year they don't have anybody. I was using that as an example.
Oh, got you. Okay,
A
got you.
team coming out of left field and surprising everybody, which
Mhm.
happens on occasion. And if they were to do that this year, they didn't have anybody representing them in the All Star game. So why? I mean, they had Bam, didn't they?
Yeah, this year we had Bam,
They had Bam, but
and
I
he
guess
and,
my
and he
point
he
is
started in the, remember. So they had Bam 2 years in a row. That's what I was saying. They had Bam 2 years in a row, and he started this year because Embiid got hurt.
he did, you're right. But my point is, like, you could have somebody, you could have a team out there that doesn't have anybody representing them, and then if they make the finals, they might get home court advantage or not based on a game that they weren't even a part of. Like, that's ludicrous to me.
Okay, and just to fill you in, by the way, so they stopped it in 2017 for baseball. The home field
Okay.
advantage was just a regular season record, but previously, so that's why I was alluding to it. Since I had when I was growing up, that was normally the thing, and I
And
think
like
it
I
worked
said, they
out
had
well.
did that for a while. I just thought I remember hearing them stopping that, but they did, like you said, they did that throughout most of our lives.
Yeah, right, and it worked out pretty well. But again, I know baseball is a harder thing to because you have to play that game differently. But go ahead.
Yeah, but like I mean, I pretty much finished my point, but I just think like it's kind of hard when when you're having a game where Okay, even if Bam was in it, let's say this example, Bam's in it. Your best player, Jimmy Butler, wasn't in it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I think the main problem, and I agree with that part of it. I think the main problem for not doing that is similar to what you're saying with those two teams. You have a team like the Heat that barely made the playoffs as an 8 seed, and you basically have a team in the Nuggets who basically had the best record from start to finish all year. And then you telling me if they got to the finals, the Heat get home court advantage? Like, I'm a Heat fan, but that's just unfair. So like, I can understand not doing that, and also too. I mean, when we look at the league this year, there's only really like 4 or 5 legit teams that we think have a chance to even make the finals. So what about those other guys? Like if
Exactly.
I'm these other guys, if I'm Tyrese Halliburton, I mean, look, respectfully, he's had a great year, but the Pacers aren't making the finals. Maybe not in his head, but they're not. Is that that's not going to make me necessarily compete harder. So I think that idea is kind of tough, but I figured we could throw it on the podcast because people have talked about it a lot. Now, what do you think about the contract incentives? Now, here's my theory on the contract incentives, Trey, and I'll put my twist on it, and then tell me how you what you feel. So I don't think traditionally, because guys are already getting paid money if they do win the All Star game, like the East or the West. So the first idea people are usually like, well, just pay them more. To millionaires, I think it's the guys that are like on huge, huge contracts. It's going to be tough to like incentivize them. I don't know if this would be possible, and obviously the NFL, the NBA PA, excuse me, wouldn't agree to it. But what if they did the contract incentives similar to like All NBA, where like you can make even more on a certain extension if you win maybe X number of All Star games or something like that. Now it doesn't have to be as dramatic as All NBA. Like if some guys, if you're making All NBA, I mean we're talking about 40, $50 million difference. It doesn't have to be like that, but maybe 5 million difference, maybe 10 million difference. Like, do you think that's even something that would be plausible?
I mean, that's something to consider, but then I think it gets kind of tricky because listen, all NBA is just we're naming 15 guys, but with the All-Star game, we just brought up a valid point. Joel Embiid was going to be the starter, but then Bam Adebayo had to take his place because he's injured. So then does his injury replacement, do they get the nod in the contract extender? And does Joel Embiid still get it? Because technically he made the All-Star game, but he just hurt. I just think, there is some wrinkles to it. But I mean, that's one of the better options if you had to pick one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't think about that point too. Yeah, because what do you do with the guys that are injury replacements and not and stuff like that? Yeah. That's just one I threw out there. Something that would be the only financial one I would say. I think we can agree on that because like other than
Yeah.
that, just giving them straight up money, it's not going to really work for most of these guys. So I would say
Listen,
that
if you got a $250 million contract, I know to us, they said they're going to pay us half a million. That's a lot, but if you're making $250 million over 5 years, I don't really think you're going to be sweating a half a million.
right. And then I got two other solutions that I think are plausible, and they can do this even starting next year. One, no matter the competition of the game, Trey, you got to bring back the target score. We got to get rid of the time and bring back the target score
Yeah, I don't know why
because
they got rid of that to begin with.
I
I
don't
thought it
either.
worked out well, so
I don't
I
either.
didn't understand that.
And I watched the Rising Stars game. I don't know if you did.
Yeah,
The, at the end of every Rising Stars game, you're basically going to have a game winning shot. So no
and it
matter how
makes
the
it
game is,
exciting.
right, it makes it exciting, and you have a score in mind. So you're even in the back of your mind. If you notice both of the games, you're like they're trying to just keep it close because you're like you want to be within striking distance, and then you do a cumulative score. So especially the year that Kobe passed when they did that 2020 All Star game, that was perfect. And of course I know people were more competitive because it was the Kobe, everything had happened at that time a couple months, like a month before that, but man, those games were so exciting and they kept it really close and then they were able to, get the score at the end. So the target score is something that's got to be there. I mean, they could do that as soon as next year.
Agreed, agreed. And like I said, I'm not even sure why they got rid of it. I don't know what the incentive was to get rid of it. I mean, I guess if I just had to, come up with this guess, they would probably say, well, when the target score, when another team was up by 20, the other team didn't care. So we thought that did kind of didn't incentivize a competitive game. But I mean, even when you don't have the target score, obviously this wasn't a competitive game. I mean, Carl
Right.
Anthony Towns, for crying out loud, scored 50 points and nobody cares because it was a blowout.
Right. And also it's Carl Anthony Towns. But
Yeah,
to be fair, the target score thing, like you said, you got to do it in the way they did it in that year in 2020. It's got to be cumulative. So you don't want to get dragged down just because you got down 20 earlier. Like that cumulative score should matter both ways, and you can win different quarters. So I think there's a way that they can do it similar to that it can work. And then here's my final suggestion for the All Star game, and this one is actually pretty straightforward. I don't even hear people mentioning it very often. If we want the All Star game to get better, how about the best players? i.e., the face of the leagues, which is LeBron James and Steph Curry. How about they just come out and play hard? Is that too much to ask? Y'all just come out and set the tone. Because you know what I can guarantee you, Trey? If LeBron James and Steph Curry come out there, and I exclude Giannis because Giannis kind of is like Russell Westbrook. He kind of always plays hard. LeBron James and Steph Curry come out and play serious. And I'm not saying serious diving on the floor for loose balls, but in a serious enough where you can tell, oh, they're trying to win. They're playing like relative defense. They're taking relatively good shots. I guarantee you everyone else is going to follow suit. There's no chance in hell that everyone else isn't going to follow suit. So just play harder. You guys care enough and you play harder, and then we will care enough and watch the game.
LeBron 40 years old, so he ain't playing too much hard in a recreation game.
Well, okay,
If we're
but
gonna be honest.
Trey, he can play harder, and he doesn't have. How many minutes did he play in the All Star game? He played like 12 minutes in this All Star
Yeah.
game. You can play 12 minutes hard, 12 minutes, and get granted. I'm not saying hard minutes like hard like it's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
in
I know, I
season
understand what you're
tournament.
saying, but I'm just saying, like, he not even gonna warm up enough to play a little bit harder at this point in his career.
Trey, we've seen those guys play harder in pickup games. Like they can play harder in an All Star game. Like, and I'm not even like it. Just could be I mean, the bare minimum of playing hard. It just be around your defender. How about just not the free like lanes to the cup, no contest. How about at least attempting to set a screen or something? I mean, it's got ridiculous.
I just think
Yeah,
what I want to say. I just think that I guess it leads to a bigger issue, but I just think that they need to shorten the season. And I think if you shorten the season, as far as the All-Star game goes, then players will they would be fresher and they would have more energy and they would be more inclined to play a little bit harder. But the season's
I'm pretty
already
sure they was.
too.
I'm Trey. I'm pretty sure they was all fresh on Saturday night when they was riding around and getting it.
You're
I'm
right,
pr-
but I mean that's a little bit different than playing basketball. But I get your point.
I, Now, here's what I will say about maintaining the freshness. And I heard Chris Broussard talk about this. Now they can remove some of the events. They have to do a ton of events. The NBA cares, the charities, the brand stuff. There's so many things that these guys have to do over the course of that weekend. They're so busy. And now, if they want to remove some of that, fine. But I'm not going to shorten the season just so you can play hard in an All Star game.
And
If you
no,
don't
and
want to play hard in the All Star game, just don't come to the All Star game.
the shortening season is for a bigger issue. But I'm just saying, I think that would get players to possibly play harder.
I think what they should do is let these young pups play in the All Star game more minutes, like the Palos and the Scotty Barnes, the guys that are actually going to play harder.
I mean, Anthony Edwards was out there shooting left hands in the skill challenge, so let's not. And Luca was shooting from half court, so we got
But
to be
again,
careful what we ask for.
it's all set the tone by those other guys. They got to play harder. Now, those are the things that I found out that we laid out. Is there any real solution to this? Like, you have anything that you would want to see? Obviously, you want to see them play harder, and you want to see a more competitive game. But is there anything that you can actually pinpoint? Because I don't know if it's like a one clear cut thing.
No, I don't. I just think that it is what it is. I mean, we saw the same thing with the NFL Pro Bowl, and now keep in mind, football is a much more physical sport. It's a contact sport, so I understand, the risk of injury is a lot higher, and I can see why players didn't really want to go 100% in that. But the same sentiment remained the same. It's pretty much just the exhibition game. At least in the Pro Bowl, it's at the end of the season. In the All Star game, it's in the middle of the season. We really want to break. Our bodies need to break. We're just not going to go hard. And I just don't think there's anything that you can really do to really change that. You know what I mean?
I do have one point that you actually made me think about. I don't know if you probably haven't watched the Pro Bowl in a couple years, Trey, but
No.
if I've seen clips of it because they removed the whole tackling thing and they just did flag football. Guys actually kind of play hard because it's flag football. They can remove the injury part of it and they just play, and it's kind of fun. Like I know it's not tackle football, but relative to what it is, it's kind of fun. Now the dodgeball and all that other stuff, I don't really care. But I'm talking about the actual game. It's kind of cool because you can still see Tyreek Hill and those athletic guys, right? Like do those type of things. How about instead of the game altogether, Trey? Let's just do the king of the court. Let's do the king of the court. Let's do three dribbles. Whatever rules you want to put it. Put a referee. Don't put a referee. Whatever you want to. Hell, actually, you got to put a referee. These dudes would be calling fouls every possession if it was up to them. So
Huh.
why don't you
I
just do
mean,
king of the court?
I know most people wouldn't realize this, but I mean, the NBA, they used to have one-on-one games in the All Star game around like the 90s.
Yeah, I remember that.
Because,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, it's something to keep in mind. I just don't know from a TV viewership perspective how well that would be received. And obviously, you got to feel like the two. 2.5 hours, whatever the All Star game has. And we can say what we want to say, but the All Star game, as far as viewership, was up 20% from last year. So, like, even though the product to me was terrible, and to you, I feel like you feel the same way. People are still watching it.
Well, that's but isn't the other stat? It was like the lowest since something else. I believe there was like another viewership stat that it wasn't great either. It was just
Yeah, it wasn't great, but I'm just saying it was up from last year. So it's kind of like,
why don't you just do King of the Court and let's just do everything Saturday night. Let's just do the 3 point shootout, all that good stuff. Let's just get it all out the way because obviously that can't stand alone. And I tell you what, you know who is gonna play hard? The dude playing defense because they don't want to get their behind busted on TV. I can tell you
yeah.
that. I
My
can tell you that much.
And one other thing I just thought about, just brainstorming, like just thinking about it, you could do it like a Rising Stars Challenge where you have like more than one team. You know, it's not just East and West. You kind of split them out into four different teams.
Yeah, you could do that. You could do it. You could do it that way. Or what about like a little 3-on-3,
Yeah,
like a little 3-on-3 or something like that. I mean,
yeah. Olympic basketball, Olympic 3-on-3.
yeah, there you go. We just thought about that here. Why don't we just do a little 3-on-3 tournament? You split up all the all stars. If you want to still do 3-on-3s, East versus West, that's fine. Or if you want to do like all the East 3-on-3s play against each other, and then all the West 3-on-3s, and then like the East and the West each 3-on-3, best team plays each other for the championship. Fine, do or the for the All Star game winner, fine, and then you get an MVP. Let's do that. Let's do 1-on-1 or 3-on-3. I'm down for any of those ideas. But this 5-on-5 running up and down, the only other way you could do the 5-on-5, Trey, you got to do it. You got to do World versus America. You got to do it. You got to do it. That's going to be the only thing that's going to provide some type of pride. And by the way, we might lose. We
I'm not
might
even sure
lose.
that's gonna, I'm not even sure that's going to provide pride because I mean, if you're looking at two of the biggest, I'm gonna call them slackers in the All Star game, it was Luka and Jokic. Like they look like the two players that could carry less the most. Like they really did. I mean, Luca took a half court shot for crying out loud with like 30 seconds left on the shot clock. So like,
But I can't say that they didn't care less than what Tatum was doing this last year and this year and what Anthony Edwards was doing. I can't say that. I can't say that. To me, it's all
yeah.
equal.
I mean, yeah,
Uh,
it was overall bad effort. Yeah.
yeah. So, but I get your point though. But that's the only chance of us having a little bit of pride and like
And even
some a
then,
little
it
bit
would
of
last
bragging
for like a
rights.
season. The pride would be there for a season. Then next season, they wouldn't care.
What until the next season? Oh, you think it just wouldn't be sustainable?
Yeah, I think it'll be almost similar to that Kobe year where we thought that we had something going on with that target score, and it's like, oh man, this is what's going to make it competitive, and then it kind of the ball just fell, it just dropped, and it's like, nope, that was just a one time thing.
I think the best idea we've come up with while doing this, and this has basically just been our brainstorming session. I think the 3-on-3, Trey. I think we can stamp that. I think the 3-on-3 will be solid. Because you're right. Maybe if they want to make Sunday like a separate thing, then you can't do 1-on-1 by itself because you that's not sustainable. So they're probably gonna want to stretch it to one day because since the All Star game is their Super Bowl, do 3-on-3 because that's basically the like flag football in the tackle football. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of close. Where you're not playing the full thing, but you can play. And because you're not going up and down the court full court, you don't have to worry about like those leak out fast breaks where like nobody's doing anything. You're relatively in the same thing. It'll basically just be like the big three.
Yeah, pretty much.
Except, I mean, I know the big three they're playing harder, but that'll basically be what it is. So yeah. So let's stamp it. 3-on-3 is what we want to see next year. Now, can we just talk about quickly the dunk contest and the 3-point shootout? I'm gonna just These are my quick takes. You let me know how you feel. 3-point shootout right now is the best event. I think we can agree. It's competitive every single year. And then it was already good, Trey. And then they added Sabrina Ionescu with Steph Curry. That made it even better, which means we can get Caitlin Clark and whoever the best shooters is. We can continue doing that. I think that's the best. I think that's the best event. You agree?
I agree.
Okay, so we agree that's the best event. I'll get the dunk out in a second. Skills challenge. I got a simple fix, Trey. They got to go back to the skills challenge of like 2019. Do you remember when they had both guys competing against each other at the same time?
Yeah.
I think they need to do that. And second, like it doesn't need to be a team thing. Like it should be an individual thing. That it's a skills challenge. It doesn't mean to be a whole team. And then second, we got to remove all the extra crap, Trey. It's like 3 jump shots, a bounce pass. I'm like, let's just do the basic like we used to have it. Let's weave. Give me one bounce pass. Give me one jump shot. Give me one chest pass, and let's get the heck out of here. We're not trying to be here all night. We really, you know what I mean? Like that. That's my thing. And I like when you have to compete against each other because like you're kind of like in the back of your mind feel the pressure because the other person's next to you. Your thoughts on that?
I love the idea about competing against each other. I think it kind of just in itself kind of brings a natural competitiveness to these guys. You know, they don't want to lose, especially when they're paired against somebody in real time. So I think that will help. As far as the extra stuff goes, I mean, you could leave it in, you could take it out. I really don't even care about the extra stuff. Like, it doesn't bother me one way or the other. It doesn't really shake me to my core. So, like, we can do whatever you want to do. The one thing that I would change up in the skills challenge, and it's not something I would necessarily do, but I think it's a thought probably, is maybe you could combine this with the WNBA and have some of the WNBA players doing it as well. I think that will at
Mm,
least incentivize the male players to go a little bit harder, and I think the WNBA players will be going hard to try to prove their point of how good they are. So I think you could do something like that. I'm not sure how many players would really like that or really would agree to that, but I think it's an idea.
I love that idea. The skills gap is easy. They can both do the, it's the same rim. You can both, shoot. They can use their ball if they want. Everyone has to do
Yeah.
a chest or a bounce pass, right? Like it's the same thing. Yeah, I love that idea. Since we're gonna already bring out the WNBA players for the shooting, why not do that? You know what I mean? I love that idea because we can't bring them out for the dunk contest. Let's do that. Like
Yeah, I could just see some of the male players be like, "No, I don't want to do this."
well, then
I can
don't.
see some
Then
of them
don't.
backing out.
Actually, you know what? I love that they said that, Trey. Don't, because you guys were the ones that were not taken seriously anyway. You know who would want to do it and probably still play hard? Scotty Barnes, Tyrese Maxey, like these guys that are actually young and actually were trying. Like these other guys, Ant Edwards, you don't want to do it? Then don't do it. Don't do it. Go sell your shoes at Adidas. Go do your thing. That's fine. Show up for the All Star game 3-on-3, but that's fine. Just let's get guys in that actually want to do it and compete. And then the dunk contest. Now we've complained
Nothing.
about this essentially for years, since probably the Levine Gordon dunk contest. What are we gonna do about the dunk contest? Because I had a bunch of notes about what we should do for all these events. I'll be honest, I had no notes on the dunk contest. I don't know what to do. I don't know what the solution is. I feel like I've seen almost every dunk ever, and then I go online and see a random video of a guy doing a dunk, and I can't get any NBA players to do the dunks. What do we do? Because obviously the main part is the players getting in there. Like, how do we get the players that we want in there? I mean, like, I have no idea. I'm just so over the dunk contest being bad.
Yeah, I don't think there's much you can do for the dunk contest. The only idea I've ever thought about, and this was over the years, is maybe making it like a semi-annual thing where you have it every 2 years, so it kind of builds up the momentum, and maybe more guys should be willing to do it, being that it's more a rare occurrence, and that's a rare thing to do and put in your resume as an NBA player. But really outside of that, the thing is, listen, man, with YouTube, with social media, and we're able to see all these dunkers, including professional dunkers. And what I mean by that is people who specify who their job is to put on YouTube dunks. Like that is what they do. Like the NBA players, they play basketball for a profession. These guys dunk for a profession. So
Yep.
with that being said, and us being able to see all these dunk contests from all over the world and professional dunkers do their thing, I think it just took some of the luster out of the dunk contest. Because I would imagine in the 80s when you saw Michael Jordan and Dominique Wilkins gliding through this guy, dunking the ball, this was something you were rarely ever see on TV. You probably never even saw it before in your life up until that point. But now, since it's such a common occurrence, the dunk contest really just doesn't hold a lot in our imagination. And the star players, they're not inclined to do it because if they do it, they're just going to look like Jalen Brown and get made fun of on social media. And who wants that? And I can't really blame them.
I think that I think if you do the dunk contest, you got to be a good sport because if your dunk's not an all out 50, people are going to have stuff to say about it. And I just think we're in an era where these stars are really, really sensitive. And I think it comes, like you said, down to social media. But of course, it is because LeBron didn't do the dunk contest and nobody else feels like they're necessary to do so because all the other great players that were athletic has done the dunk contest. That's
But at
why
least
if
in LeBron's case, I'm gonna say this: he was a power dunker. Like he wasn't. We saw his dunk contest in high school. It wasn't
Dominique
that he
Wilkins wasn't
won
a
it.
power dunker.
Yeah, but he had a bigger arsenal than LeBron. Like LeBron really, bro.
Okay,
His
first of all,
signature.
we don't know what LeBron's arsenal is because he never did it. Second of all, I'm pretty sure he can figure out some dunks because I seen him in the layup lines.
Yeah, I just don't. I guess is what I'm getting at. I just don't think it would have been impressive. So I wasn't like based off of what he did in high school. I was like, yeah, I'm not that mad if he didn't enter the dunk contest.
But my whole thing is the dunk contest isn't because like LeBron just wants the king of controlling every single narrative. You may lose a dunk contest, but what happened to the dunk contest doing it as just being fun? Like it was just a
But I
fun
mean,
thing
how
to
many
compete
people
in.
did that just prevent? Like we always talk about Dominique and Michael Jordan, but who came after Dominique and Michael Jordan? Okay, it's like a
Kobe,
20.
Vince Carter, like there's
Okay, but
plenty.
that's like a 10-year gap. You got Kobe his rookie year, then Vince Carter, and then who came after them? Like it's just
But the
the dunk
point is
contest
the
has always
best.
been kind of sparse.
Okay, but the point is the best players that have been of their generation that are athletic have done the dunk contest. LeBron's the only one that didn't. And that's the thing. And especially if a player of his status, if Michael Jordan could do the dunk contest, you can do it. And I'm gonna be honest with you, Trey. LeBron would have won a dunk contest if he would have won the dunk contest. He would have got the votes. Put it that way. Let's just come on. Let's keep it a
Yeah, he
buck.
would have won it, but I mean, like it wouldn't have been a good one. But you're right, he would have won it.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm like, you don't even have nothing to lose. And it's like, now listen. Now, Trey, I understand if he was like doing a dunk contest and it was like, oh, you want to do dunk contest? It's you versus Ja and Zion. Like, nah, I understand. If the field was stacked, maybe I would think against it. But he could have done it in previous years where they could have
No,
got
no,
some
no, no, no.
guys.
As soon as LeBron says he's entering the contest, some of these other players are going to enter just to make a name off of it. So the field would have been stacked.
Okay, I think other players would enter, but I don't think it would be. Let's just put an example. I mean, we can't use the LeBron example now just because he's older. But let's just say, for example, LeBron was like he wants to do the dunk contest, like maybe like last year. Do you think Ja and Zion would do it?
I think one of them doesn't.
Okay, so let's say Zion
I
was
don't know.
healthy,
I believe that in my core because I think they just know, okay, this is a good opportunity to get my face out there.
but they're those guys are so big and their faces are already out there. I would be thinking it would be a guy that would be not as big as Ja or Zion that
But
would
kind of
want to
hungry.
get yeah to go and do it. That's what I'm thinking.
And I can see that as well, but I just feel like Ja and Zion, I think that they would see the opportunity, and I think Nike, Adidas, who's ever pushing their corporate sponsors, like whoever's backing them, would see the opportunity as well. And be like, hey, you need to think about joining this because I mean, at the end of the day, it's not so much even the player just making the decision, but it's also their handlers and these corporations involved. And I'm pretty sure LeBron didn't just come to a singular decision himself, where he's like, you know what, I'm not going to enter the dunk contest. I'm pretty sure his Nike representation and whoever else is involved said like, hey, we don't know. You might not look that good in a dunk contest. You might not win. It's not good for your brand. I'm pretty sure it was a collective decision.
Let's can we just Trey? That's all. This is all nice. If LeBron wanted to do the dunk contest, no brand was going to tell him he can't do it. He was
No,
going to
I'm
do it.
not saying they would have said he wasn't going to do it, but I'm saying they would have been his ear as well, saying, "Hey, but on the flip side, you might not look that good, and if you lose, it might not be the greatest for your brand." It might have been just a 10-second blurb like I just gave you, but I'm saying he heard some pros and cons, and I'm just saying he didn't make this decision singly solely himself.
My thing is I don't buy that it would never be good for his brand if he lost a dunk contest. I just like
I
that
don't
that
think it
that
would help. I mean, like for the likes of it, I know you hate him with like Skip Bayless. What he says it still has some sticking power in the sports media landscape, regardless of how we think about him. And I'm just using him as an example because he's so far out there. But I mean, he would have said negative things like, "Oh, LeBron couldn't even win a dunk contest, and Jordan won it twice." And I can see Rob Parker, Chris Broussard, like I can see some people saying stuff.
I mean, I think it would be worse to. I think it's a worse indictment that he never did the dunk contest because it seems
I
like
don't
he's
think
scared.
so. 'Cause I don't
Oh,
think any. I don't think. I
it's
think
definitely worse that he never did a dunk
no.
contest because he seems scared.
No, 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 because it's almost like what you used to tell me about Durant when I said he made a bad decision by going to Golden State, and you said 10 to 15 years from now, nobody care. It's the same thing with the dunk contest because 10 to 15 years from now, we probably won't even have the dunk contest, so nobody will even be thinking about LeBron not doing it.
No one's gonna okay. In the same respect, 10 or 15 years later, if LeBron lost the dunk contest, we wouldn't even be talking about that either. We barely talk about him losing in some of the finals. We're not gonna talk about him losing in a dunk contest. I think they're not. Look, LeBron's resume is so big. The dunk contest, win or lose, wouldn't have been a part of it. That's just my. That's what I think
But we're
about it.
saying that after the fact, because I mean, when he would have theoretically done a dunk contest, he would have been 21, 22. His resume wouldn't have been up to par what it is now.
Bro, people don't even talk about him winning an All Star game MVPs. Like that All Star stuff is like cool and it's like part of your resume, but it's not gonna be the lasting thing that people remember you by, or
Okay,
like
so
one
then
of the.
let me flip it this real quick. You saying people don't talk about it and him winning the All Star MVP. So like if he did it on contest and won, people wouldn't talk about it. So what's the point? I'm just saying based on what you're saying, what's the point?
Because we it would be more exciting to watch during that weekend. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying a lasting legacy thing. I'm just talking about just as a viewer. If we knew LeBron was in the dunk contest, like we knew months beforehand, it creates the excitement to then watch a dunk contest. Whether the
I
result
okay.
is then great or not, it is I understand that it can vary. I'm just
I
saying
buy
like
that,
the
but then
intrigue.
we need to look at it from the NBA's perspective. What can we do to incentivize LeBron to join the dunk contest? Because let's put ourselves in his shoes, and
Oh,
we're
I'm
just
sure
saying,
they did. I'm
okay,
sure they did try to incentivize them.
about how like they need to do something good. Because my thing is, if you and me are LeBron right now, and we wanted to end the dunk contest, and somebody told us, well, yeah, nobody's going to remember this 5 years from now. It's not going to hurt your legacy. It's not going to help your legacy. Then I'm like, then why do it? Why even go through the procedures? Why even try to come up with some
Okay,
dunks? Why
let
do
me
the
put it this
stretches?
way.
Why?
It's I'm gonna change my answer. People would remember people remember that Kobe was in the dunk contest. It's not the thing that they remember about Kobe. It's not one of the first 5 things they remember about Kobe. Maybe not even the first 10 things you remember about Kobe. But if the dunk contest ever comes up, which is the once a year during All Star break, it's a cool little added thing. Like, oh yeah, he also did the dunk contest and won the dunk contest. With the LeBron thing, if he did that, it can only add to the legacy of LeBron, not subtract. Your example, if he would have done the dunk contest and lost, it would be the same thing. People would be like, "Oh, we remember LeBron did dunk contest," and we probably would not even remember. Trey, think about the dunk contest. If LeBron has one, we just talked about this. e- Everybody remembers the Aaron Gordon dunk as the most memorable dunk, and he didn't even win the dunk contest. We're not even going to remember the winner. Practically, we're going to remember the most memorable dunks. Remember Gerald Green blowing the candle? Like we remember that stuff. He didn't even win the dunk contest. LeBron, all he had to do was do one memorable dunk. Hell, he could have did his damn regular tomahawk, and we would have talked about it. Like
But see, that's the thing. That's all he would have did. Like, if you ever watch his high school dunk contest, like legitimately, that's all LeBron would have did. His regular tomahawk.
Trey, let's not act like people wasn't out here pulling out second backboards to dunk on. Like, there's things that he could have done. I mean, this isn't like difficult. I'm not saying he would have done something crazy, but like you could have got creative, had somebody throw a pass like from a weird angle. Hell, he could have had Steve Nash kicking off his dang forehead. Like, you know how that stuff go. I'm just saying it would have added to the allure of LeBron, not subtracted. Now, I know at the end of the day, we really don't really care about this completely. We just talking about it because it's All Star Weekend, and a week from now, we're not gonna talk about this until next year, and then we're gonna complain that LeBron didn't do it. So ultimately, it doesn't mean much. I'm just saying it would have been cool. That's all I mean. It just would have
Yeah,
been
no,
cool
no,
if he
no.
would
It
have
would
did
have
it.
been cool. Yeah, I give
It
you
would have
that
been
at
yeah.
least.
It had just been really cool, and I think because of that, going forward, it would have been cool if we got to see the John Morants, the Zions, as a fan, the Anthony Edwards, and like it's gonna take one of those other guys to bite the bullet and do that. I think they can get Ja because Ja seems like he wants to do it every time they tweet him about it. He just seemed like he just want a bag for it. And if I'm the NBA, give him a bag for it. Like, give him a bag for it next year. Like, I know he didn't play this year, so we couldn't really see, but give him a bag for it. Let's at least get one marquee in there because maybe he can start that trend. I know he's not as big as LeBron, but maybe he can start it. You know what I mean? So it's just one of the. It's just one of those things. When you're one of the most athletic guys ever, it's like if Steph Curry just never did a 3 point shootout and he was just like, "Well, I'm the greatest shooter ever. I don't need to prove nothing to y'all." He's like, "Come on, man. Like, do the 3 point shootout. Like, come on." Like, and that's my whole thing with it. With LeBron doing it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really mean much. The All Star game is what it is. They got to make a lot of adjustments to it anyway. It doesn't matter. Let's talk about what we want to talk about before we get out of here. Trey, you've talked about this, and I'll give you credit. You've talked about the face of the NBA thing. We've talked about it off the pod for probably years. Then you've mentioned it on the podcast. You're worried about the NBA not having a face. I hear this conversation on ESPN, I think today or yesterday, and we don't know who the face of the NBA is. There's some names we could throw out there. We think that they have a problem with pushing these actual new stars and some of these guys that we've just mentioned in our last conversation. What's your overall feeling on this? I mean, this is like halfway through this season. We haven't seen some of our young stars like take the leap that we've maybe wanted to. What's your overall like look or take on the face of the NBA? Like, where are we standing as LeBron and Curry are really on the way out?
Yeah, I don't think there is one singular face in the NBA, and that is part of the problem because again, LeBron, Curry, even if you want to put Durant in that, and Durant wasn't as popular as LeBron and Curry, but still a good, solid face of the league, never did anything off the court, those sort of things. They're all on their way out, and there's nobody right now that's willing to take their place. Ja, he has his own issues. Zion, he has his own issues. I'm not going to relitigate them, but like there's just there's not really quality faces of the league. And then you have Luka, Jokic, and Wemby, and Luka hasn't won enough to be the face. Jokic doesn't want to be the face, and Wemby's just a rookie. So like it's kind of hard. There is no face of the league. And I'm kind of interested because I want to see if this is going to lead the NBA to more or less.
Well, let me correct you real quick. There's the face of the league now, LeBron. You're saying going
Well, yeah,
forward. I just want to
yeah. I'm
clarification.
excluding LeBron, but yes.
Mhm.
Um, I'm kind of curious to see if the NBA is going to take the NFL approach where they just start pushing teams as opposed to pushing players. And I know that was the tactic that was used before David Stern took over in the '80s as the commissioner. It really didn't work then, but now the NBA is a lot more popular than it was in the '70s and the early '80s. So maybe they go back to doing that. I don't think that would be as I don't see it working out quite as well as pushing a one or two different players, but I mean, it's worth a shot because right now, like I said, you just don't have anybody. I guess you have Anthony Edwards, but again, he's not winning enough to actually be on the radar. Like more times, 9 times out of 10, we look at the faces where you're looking at the chats, the Kobe's, the LeBrons. We knew who they were when they were 16 and 17, and that just built up the momentum, and then they kept breaking different barriers in the league. The only one that really snuck up on us was Michael Jordan. By the time he left college, after those 3 years in North Carolina, we even knew who he was.
Right. I mean, I think the Anthony Edwards thing is interesting because he is charismatic. He has the game. It's early. You say they haven't won yet. They're the number one seed in the West, so we'll see. Can they be a consistent contender for the next couple years? Can they get to a conference final, stuff like that? So I think we still the jury's still out on that. It's not the greatest thing ever that he plays in Minnesota, if I'm being honest. But it can happen. You know what I mean? It could definitely happen. I gotta say this because you've mentioned this about Zion before. I don't think Zion. I think Zion was the ideal face of the league that they wanted. I don't think he'll ever be the
Oh
face
yeah,
of the league. I don't think he'll ever be.
no,
Remember we had a conversation a couple months ago. We kind of talked about like did Zion miss his window for being the player that we think he could be. I think a part of me is on the side of he has. Now, I still think he can and probably will be a great player, meaning an all-star level player for years to come and stuff like that. But that window of being the best player in the league, the potential face of the NBA, I think that I don't really know if there's a situation that he can regain that unless he just got into some really significant playoff series and was winning and was being dominant, which I would just be really shocked if he got into the playoffs with New Orleans and then he just turns into the guy that we thought. Maybe he just flips a switch. That'd be the only way. But I think he made have missed that. John Morant's interesting because I don't think he's fully missed it because when he's been on the court, he's been great. And his issue is not wanting to play basketball. I just think that if he stays on the straight and narrow for like a couple years in a row, he may have a chance and how exciting he is. And if the Memphis continues to win at the rate that they were going to win. So I think John Morant has a chance. I'm not really sold on Zion being in anymore. So if you had to ask me, it'd probably be between, Ja and Zion, or excuse me, Ja and Anthony Edwards. And I just don't know if a foreign player, because it hasn't happened before, but the only foreign player that has a shot, we kind of missed the window with Giannis because honestly, we missed the window with Giannis because LeBron and Curry stayed too long. That's really it. That's really the only
yeah,
reason we missed with Giannis. They just stayed too long in the league. I think Wimby has a chance though, Trey. I
I
think
do too.
if there was
I,
a foreign player to do it, I think he has a chance.
I think he has a legitimate chance, and he seems to have the personality that he doesn't mind. Like, let's just say again, juxtaposed with Jokic, who doesn't even want to be the face of the league, and that's completely obvious. He seems to have a forward-facing personality. He seems to be an extrovert, so he wouldn't mind doing the small things. The interviews and the commercials, which will put him out there
And his
to be the
game,
face of the
Trey,
league.
is exciting enough. I think
It
because he
is.
can do all that stuff at that size. Jokic's game is like us basketball nerds love it, but it's not really that exciting to watch.
And that's a fair point. And that segues me to another point I wanted to bring up. When you mentioned Zion, I did want to add that his game just isn't quite the same as he's not explosive or athletic as he was coming out of Duke. So I'm not even sure if his game translates to being the face of the league quite like it did 3 or 4 years ago.
I'll tell you what Zion could do to get back into the to the thing. You know what he
I knew
could
you
do?
were going to say this.
He could join that dunk contest. He do a dunk contest and win a dunk contest. He can
But
get right
let
back
me
in
say
there.
this. All jokes aside, I don't really want to relitigate that whole conversation, but I will say this. If I'm New Orleans and I'm like, we're paying you $250 million and you already had these whole bunch of injury concerns, you're not doing the dunk contest.
Oh, that's fair. I mean, no, completely fair from an organizational standpoint. I don't disagree with that at all. I'm not. I'm just talking about just purely as a basketball fan. Now, if you were saying it was my money and I was a New Orleans owner, you ain't doing it. I promise you that. But if as a basketball fan, of course, selfishly. So, are we gonna go through a gap where there's gonna not be the face of the league? I guess that's gonna be the question. You know,
I mean, we did the same thing with Jordan. I know people like to say Shaq, but I will say this much. To me and you, he's probably he was the face of the league. But when you talk to others, the older guys, the Stephen A's and the Chris Broussards and the Royal Parkers again, they always say, I've heard them say this multiple times, all these guys, that there was kind of a lull period where they were just wasn't a face of the league after Michael Jordan retired. There was just kind of a gap. And I just kind of feel like that's kind of what happens when you have guys that are in this top five-ish range. You know what I mean?
well, you're
And then you
saying
retire.
retiring the second time.
Yeah.
Okay, because if he retired after the '98 season, Shaq was already getting on and popping, and he was like something we had never seen. And then by 2000, Shaq and Kobe.
That's what I'm saying.
So
That's why I don't necessarily buy into the narrative, but I've heard other guys say that Bill Simmons, Colin Coward. I've heard other people say that it was kind of a lull, and maybe it just felt like that. Maybe it was something that you had to be there to experience to feel.
right, right. And then the last thing I will say, they did have a guy that, I mean, was the people's champ in Allen Iverson, but it wasn't necessarily the guy
Yeah,
that
but
it wasn't the guy that they wanted to push as the guy.
that and Allen, like I love Allen, but I'm saying this as a brother, he really appealed to a certain demographic.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, which is why they didn't want to push him at the time. But I think the league is in a different place now that they're okay with pushing us. So, so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
to agreed. So, yeah, we got to pay attention to that, as we go going forward. But we got a lot of stuff to get into. Trey,
Oh,
we ain't
hold
get.
up, we can't leave yet.
Oh, I know. You want to talk
Yeah, yeah,
about
yeah.
it. Go ahead. Yeah, yeah.
So, how did you feel about Isaiah Stewart punching somebody?
Listen,
I just
I
want to see
should
the video.
I should actually be laughing about it. Yeah, we got to see a video. I mean, we've talked about Isaiah Stewart and not controlling his emotions. I don't want to cast aspersions on him because we haven't seen it. But if you punch somebody in the tunnel hours before the game with his reputation, I don't know what's going on. And I don't know Drew Eubanks, so I can't tell you if he's a guy that has a hot head or not. But it just doesn't look great. And in a season that couldn't have gone any worse for the Detroit Pistons, you overpaid for a coach. Your
Yep.
basketball team has been horrible, can barely get any wins. They can't even get no wings at the wing stop because you can't even get any wins. Your first round pick from a couple years ago that was supposed to be your star point guard, you literally couldn't even find a trade partner for him. You cut him. Then the really only legitimate asset you had on your basketball team, in Bojan Bogdanovic, you only could get second round picks for that guy. I mean, this season couldn't have gone any worse if you're a Detroit Pistons fan. I mean, it is so bleak. And then Isaiah Stewart, who is probably your second best, maybe third best player on your team, like talent wise. I mean, he is that good. He can probably be a contributing player on a championship level team, and he's punching guys. So I mean, I don't know what to say if you're Detroit. You said Isaiah Stewart got a court date. I don't know what the heck's going on, Trey. But like Isaiah Stewart, Stewie, the rest of them guys in the Pistons, they got to get together because I understand a team has got to be bad in the NBA, but there ain't no reason for them to be this bad, Trey.
Like they in a bad, bad way. Like I would hate to be a Detroit fan, and this is coming from somebody that's been a lifelong Orlando Magic fan. So I've seen dark days, but I mean nothing like this.
Yeah, even as a Magic fan, you ain't seen dark days where you like look around the roster, you like, damn, we ain't got nearly nothing out here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I think Cade is a really good player, and I know you and I feel differently about it, and I just think he's in a bad situation. But other than that, yeah, other than Cade and Stewie, I like the Thompson twin defensively, but it's like, yeah, the Magic also weren't overpaying for coaches at that time when they were bad. You know what I mean? They also weren't, having teammates that were head cases. It's just like a bad situation all around.
Yeah, they just got so much going on.
Yeah, it's everything that could go bad has gone bad in one season. And as a basketball fan, I hope that doesn't continue. But we're going to keep an eye on the Isaiah Stewart thing because he's not going to be on Detroit next year, you think, right?
Nah, man, I would really find it hard for him to be in Detroit. The only way I can see him still being in Detroit is just the fact that Detroit seems to lack NBA talent amongst the players, and regardless of how you feel about Isaiah Stewart, he's still an NBA caliber player. So like that would be the only reason. It'd be out of necessity.
And he's a good player too. That's the worst part. He actually is a good player.
Yeah.
Like, I know nobody's watching Pistons games, but he actually is a pretty good player. So it's not like he's just out there just to be out there. So hopefully he gets his stuff together. But anyway, I want to thank everybody so much for joining us once again. Again, thanks for tuning in to our Hoopers Lounge. So this is exclusively all basketball if you didn't notice. So if you're a big basketball fan, this is the one to tap into. But of course, we're going to have more content surrounding all things, football, basketball, other sports, pop culture like we usually do. So keep in touch for that. Again, can't stress it enough. Apple, Spotify, YouTube Shorts, heck, Facebook, whatever works for you. Click on our link tree, check it out. You know what I mean? We're pushing our content now, so do us a favor and go ahead and hit us, give us a like and a rate, and tell us what you think about it. Oh, Trey, by the way, last thing before we get out of here, we did our poll for the GOAT conversation. We actually had like 60% of the people say Tom Brady. We had another like 30% or whatever, close to it, say Mahomes still as second, and then we had a couple with other. So people are still rocking with Brady. I know we talked about that last time. People are still rocking with Brady. Yeah, I can respect it. I thought people were going to go another way, but people are still rocking with Brady. But thank everybody for interacting with that poll as well. So we're going to get a lot of those back in, and we'll have bring our special guest back. It looks like next week, so stay tuned for that as well. And I'll swing it to Trey.
Again, like you said, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really do appreciate it. I hope you guys have a great week. And until next week, peace.